This video is entitled Infrastructure and Cloud Services and goes along with Chapter 2 in our Project Management for Technology course. I'm Dr. Reneau from Shawnee State University, and I'll be taking you through this video. Again, this course is entitled Project Management for Technology, but I know several of you aren't technologists, so we're going to just quickly cover a few technology items in case you ever do have to manage a project dealing with technology. But I'm sure even if you're not a technologist, you'll end up having to manage projects of all sorts, and probably technology projects, just because there's always going to be software and other things involved in business, especially in the future. So in this video, I want to cover what IT infrastructure is, what makes up IT infrastructure, and I want to talk about different models of cloud architectures that exist. So let's talk about infrastructure. Infrastructure is, you can think of it kind of as computing services, servers, desktops, laptops, networks, databases, software, all of those things, whether it's on the cloud or whether it's owned or whether it's leased or whether it's outsourced, it really doesn't matter. But it's all your technology infrastructure. Your computing services include a network, computers that sit all by themselves and don't talk to anything are important in some cases, but most of the time they'll be connected to networks. And networks you can think of fall into two broad categories: a wired network, where there's actually a cable running out of the wall, or a wireless network using either Wi-Fi or one of the other technologies. And we can think of networks in a couple of different broad categories: of a LAN, which represents a local area network, usually within a building or a small organization, and it's all the local computers connected together. There might be a gateway that lets you get out to the internet from that local area network, but that local area network lets you share printers and data storage and servers and that type of stuff. A WAN, or a wide area network, is basically a group of LANs that are connected together to cover an organization that has multiple locations, or maybe an international organization with hundreds of locations, so that data can be shared and servers can be shared across the wide area network. There's also a type of network known as a VPN, or a virtual private network, which allows us to connect from within our home LAN over, or lets one computer connect from a public network like the internet or our home computer or a coffee shop or wherever into our corporate network securely. VPNs can also be used to hide where you're accessing the internet from, or to add a layer of protection for internet browsing and data. Infrastructure falls in all kinds of architectures, from client-server architectures where you have desktops connecting to servers, to something called a multi-tiered architecture, which is what really big systems usually have. And in a multi-tiered architecture, there's a presentation tier, or a series of servers that deal with the user interface, collecting the data from the user. There's the processing tier that actually generates the reports, that processes the data that's been received, validates the data, that type of stuff. And then the data tier, which actually stores the data. So if you have a system that supports thousands to hundreds of thousands of users simultaneously, it wouldn't be a single server. It would be a group of servers architected probably in a multi-tier type design. Infrastructure can also include storage and documentation and data warehousing. For instance, storage comes in two general big ideas of storage. The primary storage, which is the storage that's actually inside your computer. It's connected directly to the processing unit, and it's the RAM and ROM, the random access memory, and the read-only memory that's inside your computer. It's really fast, but it's ephemeral, RAM especially. The secondary storage includes hard disks, um, uh, 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 the software, the RAM disks. It includes CD-ROMs and DVD-ROMs, optical disks. It can include a network-attached storage, which is a hard disk or disk pack or disk unit that sits attached to the network, and your computer then uploads and downloads data to that network-attached storage. And if you're in a large organization, you'll often see things called SANs, which stand for Storage Area Network. What a storage area network basically is are a bunch of NAS's, network attached storage devices, but they self-replicate. The data is saved in multiple locations. Often with a SAN, there are redundant hardware backplanes, redundant networks, redundant drives, and terabytes and terabytes worth of data can be stored and shared across a storage area network, including virtual computer images, databases, and all kinds of other things. And the really cool thing about a SAN is if it's managed correctly, and most of them are because there are serious professionals managing them, there are redundant backups to a redundant SAN located in another location and other data centers. So if your storage network goes down, or even if your data center goes down, your organization continues to be up and running because the data has been replicated across multiple locations across the storage area networks. That's doing it right. A data warehouse is a type of data, a database, which is often implemented on top of a SAN where we collect data for analysis. There's also a database, which is a type of software, and we'll talk about that in an upcoming slide. Infrastructure can also include your documentation. And you don't think about documentation as being part of your infrastructure, but it is. Because we need our inventory. We need our diagrams that explain how things are connected and how things work. We need our process, our procedures, our manuals, our knowledge bases, our all of those kinds of things are as much infrastructure as they are software and data, because they describe how things are connected and how things and why things work. So I want you to always remember that your documentation, especially about your infrastructure, is actually an essential part of the infrastructure itself. Now let's talk about cloud. What is the cloud? Well, the cloud basically is just somebody else's computer. Well, and not necessarily somebody else's computer, because there's something called a private cloud. We'll talk about that in an upcoming slide here. But the cloud is basically putting a computer on the internet or on a network and using the resources on it. You'll see a lot of these little SASS and PAAS and IAS. And they're just kind of different ways to structure a cloud. For instance, SaaS stands for Software as a Service. So what you're doing is you rent, lease, purchase, have a contract for monthly payments, annual payments, whatever, to use the software. Microsoft 365, QuickBooks Cloud. There are lots of these software as a service. And you basically pay for the software, and the vendor of the software, the manufacturer of the software, manages all of the storage, manages the computer it's stored on, manages how you get it. And it works generally really well, especially since you don't have to worry about backups. You don't have to worry about it running on your computer. You don't have to worry about lots of things. But if you don't have access to the internet, you can't do much with it. Then there's the idea of the platform as a service. where a company will sell you bits of their, or will sell you the, or lease you the cloud services, allowing you to build your own software, to build your own creation, to create your own stuff. AWS, Amazon's Web Services, Microsoft's Azure, and other kind of things are platform as a service, is allowing you to build your platform. And infrastructure as a service is kind of the generalization of platform as a service, where not only are we leasing you servers, storage, but we're also releasing connectivity, backups, and global communications and all of those kinds of things, infrastructure as a service. So instead of owning your own server infrastructure, instead of owning your own data communications, instead of owning your own that kind of stuff, you just lease it from Amazon Web Services or Microsoft or Rackspace or one of the other, GoDaddy or one of the other providers that will sell infrastructure. And then there is an acronym known as XaaS that's pretty new, and the X pretty much stands for whatever, anything, everything. And XaaS represents where you convert an existing application that's running on your own servers, that's running on your own private servers, that's running on your desktops or wherever, out to a cloud application. And you're basically moving all of everything out to the cloud. Lots of organizations are doing this. Now that we've talked about different kinds of ways to use the cloud, I want to talk about the different deployment models. For instance, a private cloud. A cloud doesn't have to belong to somebody else. You can build your own cloud, prop your own server up, have your own internet connection or your own network connections, and it could be on your corporate site, it could be off-site. The great thing about a private cloud is you have complete control over it. It's yours. You secure it as secure as you want it, or limit the access to it. So if you have some very sensitive corporate data, you may want to put it on a private cloud, build your own little cloud server, prop it up, and put your database, put your data on it. There's the idea of a community cloud, which is a private cloud, but more than one organization may use it. So, for instance, maybe you've got different researchers at multiple colleges working on a single project, or you've got multiple vendors working on a single project, but you want it to be relatively secure. So, one of you or a group of them would prop up or would build a private cloud, but it would be used by the community, not just the employees of the single organization, but the community that's pooling the information, common needs. You'll often see community clouds used by groups of doctors that will have a single system for multiple doctors' offices so that they can share the PHI and share the patient data, but also share the expense, share the risk. The last is kind of a public cloud. So using Amazon Web Services Cloud or Microsoft's Azure Cloud or one of the other cloud services, that there are hundreds of them out there. It's often a third-party cloud where it belongs to somebody else, and you lease, you buy, you rent, you basically have a subscription to use part of their big server systems. That's what a lot of organizations are doing for their web hosting, for their sales and user interface, for that kind of stuff. Especially customer-facing stuff, because you can leverage their large networks and leverage their fault tolerance and leverage their servers scattered all over the world for better access to your customers. And there's always the hybrid cloud. The idea of using a private cloud for some things and a public cloud for other things, all depending upon how sensitive the data is, all depending upon your tolerance for risk and other issues like that. The book CompTIA Project Plus Study Guide Exam PK0005 3rd edition was used in the preparation of this video presentation. This presentation is copyright 2023 by James Reneau Ph.D. You can contact me at jreneau@shawnee.edu if you have any questions, concerns, problems, or if you see any errors in this presentation. This work is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial Share Alike 4.0 International License, and I'd like to say thank you for watching another in this video series.